What's up, YouTube? It's part 2 of the Hakes July auction coverage. I wanted to kind of go through Empire Strikes Back all the way through the droids line. Lots of prototypes. We've got some foreign variants. As you can see by this thumbnail, there were some pretty incredible items that sold in this second batch of items, and I'm barely scratching the surface. I would say that this July auction from Hakes, I think it's lot 238, was probably the best auction since I've really started focusing on Hakes and some of the different items that they offer. It was a pretty incredible lot. They did a great job with it. As you saw in the first video, which was yesterday, you can go back and check it out on the channel if you have not seen it. The prices were down. And a lot of the items I'm going to show you today, I don't know if that's necessarily the case. They're just so rare or such high grade, or they come up so irregularly, or in the case of this ESB Boba Fett, it's a one-of-one example. So we'll start with that one in a second. But a lot of these items did kind of buck the trend of the items in the first video where prices were down. Now, that's not to say there weren't some great deals on ESB through the droids line. There were a lot of really good deals. I'm not going to cover all of them. You can go back to Hakes.com and check out the closed auction section, and you can pull up any item you want. But there were some really good deals out there. But I picked a smattering of different items that I thought were worth talking about. And we're going to start with this one. This is a first shot prototype Probot droid. So like the Imperial Spy droid, this is an unpainted first shot prototype AFA 90, beige plastic. I've seen a few of these pop up over the years, and the value code on this one was $5,000 to $10,000. This one sold for $64.90. $64.90 took that home. And I do remember one being on eBay. I couldn't tell you what the sales price was on it because it was a long time ago, but I have seen a few examples like this pop up. And, you know, anytime you get a first shot prototype for these vintage Kenner items, they tend to command big money, especially in high grade, especially kind of unique items like this where you know there's not a lot of these that exist. But this AFA 90 did sell for $64.90, and just like in the last video, all the prices I'm quoting include the 18% buyer's premium that is charged on top of the winning bid by Hakes. They also charge potentially sales tax as well as shipping costs, but the 18% number will be included in all of these winning bids. Next up was the Cloud City playset. This was a mint in sealed box, Sears exclusive, graded AFA 90. This is the first time I've ever seen one of these mint in sealed box, much less a 90 grade, and the price reflected that. It still came in at the lower end of the value code, which is Hakes' estimate of where they think it's going to end up. They had a range of $5,000 to $10,000. It came in at $62.83. And is that a fair price? I guess. I mean, these just come up so irregularly that I have no idea what the market is on these. It's certainly a beautiful item. The box art is pretty incredible on it. It included baggies for Lobot, the Ugnaught, Dengar, and then of course Han Bespin. And I mean, that's literally just like straight off the shelf. It's just absolutely immaculate condition, AFA 90. And but that's still got a winning bid towards the lower end of the price range by Hakes. Here's the really unique item, and I didn't talk about this in the first kind of preview video, but one of you did mention it, and I didn't see it until he mentioned it, so thank you for sharing that, whoever that was. But this is a 48 back A Boba Fett, but what's unique about this one is that it's a Taiwan figure inside. And if you know your variants, you know that the Taiwan Boba Fetts really only came on Return of the Jedi cards, as well as the Droids card back, which we got one of those that also sold for big money that we'll go over in a second. So if we had to guess, this is most likely some sort of production test sample, believed to be a test sample sent from the Taiwan factory back to Kenner in the U.S. for inspection. And, you know, it had a unique bubble. It had no footer present, which they typically do on the Empire Strikes Back cards. So this is a one-of-one type of item. It was graded AFA 75+. The label mentions Taiwan figure. It does not mention that it's a quality control sample or salesman test sample, factory test sample, because no one knows. No one knows. It's the first time one of these has ever turned up. And, you know, the value code on it was $20,000 to $35,000. Even that one, a one-of-one type of item, still came in below that. It came in at $18,880, which, again, who knows what it's really worth. But, you know, given that a standard 21 back A Boba Fett can sell for that, to get a one-of-one made in Taiwan Boba Fett on the only known example on an Empire Strikes Back card for the same price of a standard 21 back A in a high grade. I thought that was a great price, and it still came in lower than what Hakes expected it to come in at. But anyway, just an interesting item that you will probably never see again until this person who bought it goes to resell it. But very unique to find a Taiwan Fett on a 48 back Empire Strikes Back card. Several poppies did sell, the Japanese poppies, which I obviously bought one of those in a Hakes auction last year, but this is the Boba Fett. This one was graded UKG 90%. The value code on that one was $5,000 to $10,000. The winning bid was $23.60, so it came in over 50% less than the low end of the value code. So even the poppies were way down. Now, do I think that $23.60 is a fair price? Yes. There was an AFA or UKG graded example that sold on Facebook for right around that $2,300 number. So that ended up being right, almost the exact same price. But here is the Death Star droid. Now, I have the exact same item, exact same grade. And this one, the value code on it was $1,000 to $2,000. I think I paid, after buyer's premium and tax and shipping costs, I think I paid around $1,100 for mine. Well, this exact same item, exact same grade, sold for $778. So maybe let's call it $850 or so after shipping and things like that. So that shows you how much the market has dropped even since last year when I bought this exact same item from Hakes. So I'm down about $350 to $400 on mine, and that's okay. I don't particularly care, but I just thought it was an interesting comparison, apples to apples, right? It's the exact same item I bought last year in the exact same grade, exact same presentation, everything, and I bought it from the exact same seller, and you can see how much the price has dropped. It's gone from about, I think it was around $1,150 I paid, and now the same one sold for about $800 to $850 after accounting for shipping costs. So pretty incredible just to see, and that's a good example of just in general items that are not necessarily the most rare. I mean, you can find these poppies pretty much everywhere, maybe not in this high of a grade, but they do pop up fairly regularly, and these common items seem to be dropping in price. Here's one that's very rare, though. This is a Spanish PvP mint on card 45 back Imperio Contratica Walrus Man. So this is a pretty amazing gem. Clear blister. You can see the early Spanish logo there, and I mean, these do not come up very regularly at all. It's a pretty incredible item. Here's the back of the card. Just a really awesome item. And this one sold, it kind of came in towards the lower end of the value code of $2,000 to $5,000. It sold at $23.36, which I thought was a great price. That's a price I would have been willing to pay all day long for an early Spanish card back. Absolutely gorgeous, and I thought that was a very fair price. Here's another one. This is an AFA 50 POC/PvP C3PO. This one does not come up very regularly, but it was heavily yellowed. It did have quite a bit of damage to it, but you don't find these very often with these early POC logos on here. This has got the guarantee quality POC logo on there, so very, very desirable foreign variant, even in the condition it's in. It did have blister support, and you can see a crack in the blister there, but wow, what a unique item. And that one sold for $19.47, which I thought was a great price. The value code again on that one was $2,000 to $5,000, so even that one came in below the low end of the value code. We got several different Revenge of the Jedi proof cards. I just picked one randomly. This one is the R5D4 graded AFA 80. Now, I believe there was an AFA 85 that sold in a Hakes auction last year for around $2,500. Now, admittedly, this is a lower grade. It was an AFA 80. That one sold for $1,570, which is a price that I would have paid all day long for my R5D4 collection, but it was not meant to be. I'm not looking to buy anything right now, but pretty awesome item there. And almost all of the Revenge of the Jedi proof cards came in kind of towards the lower end of the range. There were a few exceptions here and there. A lot of them were lower grade, like 75s and 80s like this. In general, that's a good strategy to use if you are looking for these proof cards, is look for the 80 grades because in general, the big whale collectors, they want 85 and above for proof cards. So, but there were some 75 pluses, 80s, 80 pluses that I thought all sold for very reasonable prices. I don't know what happened on this one. This is a standard 65 back B green lightsaber Luke Jedi. It was a yellow blister, AFA 85, admittedly, so very high grade. The value code on it was $1,000 to $2,000. It sold for $1,140. So maybe I'm missing something there, but maybe it's a unique one with in terms of the factory code, it was a Taiwan figure, but just a standard 65 back B. But it is a Taiwan, and it sold for $11.40, which seems really high to me. Maybe that's just me. I just sold, I think, a 65B for like $7.50, and I ended up, donating a lot of the proceeds towards some funeral expenses. But I feel pretty good about the price that he paid for that, just given that this one sold for $11.40. Mine was an AFA 85 as well, so I think it was a 65 back. It might have been a different card back. I can't remember. Here was another 65 back B AFA 80 that sold for $9.44. So this one was a clear blister as well, which I actually thought this was a better deal. I'd much rather have a clear blister, lower grade, versus a yellow blister, higher grade. But they ended up selling for right around the same price. But very interesting sales prices on this one. Now, the other one was a Taiwan. This one was the Hong Kong. So if I had to guess, I'm guessing that the Taiwan Luke on the 65 back is pretty scarce, and maybe that's why that one sold so high. But this one was the Hong Kong clear blister that sold for slightly lower at $9.44. Next up was a Boba Fett on the 65 back A, archival case, yellow blister, AFA 80. It was punched with a price sticker. The value code on that one was $2,000 to $5,000. I was kind of expecting $2,500 to $3,000. It came in at $19.47. So really good deals out there for a lot of these figures. And this one looks like the Taiwan. Let me see. This one is the Taiwan. So this is the very desirable Taiwan Fett, mint on card, AFA 80, and it sold for $19.47. Now keep that in mind, right? During the height of the Book of Boba Fett, an AFA 85 loose graded Taiwan sold for $1,100. Think about how far the market has dropped when you can get a mint on card Taiwan Fett for $19.47. That's an incredible price drop, and it just shows you how far the market has come down. Next up was a tri-logo yak face, AFA 80. This one was not packed with the weapon, 80, 80, 85. This one was unpunched as well, no price sticker. Beautiful item. It still came in towards the lower end of the price range of $2,000 to $5,000. It came in at $2,306. I mean, that is a bargain of a price, given that these were going well over $3,000. I mean, I remember several data points for the tri-logo yak face that were $3,000 plus this time last year. So great deal on that one. And if I had been looking, that would have been a bargain. Several Lily Lettys did sell, and they all kind of sold basically more or less where I expected. I knew the value code on this C3PO was too low. The value code was $1,000 to $2,000. Now, admittedly, it's only an AFA 30, but this is one of the rarest mint on cards you can get. There's obviously some exceptions, like the red Burgundy Cape Bib Fortuna, maybe a mint on card Jawa removable hood. Some of those, but to get a C3PO mint on card, I'm telling you, it's very tough to do, and it still came in only at $29.85. I was expecting close to $4,000, to be honest with you. So while it did come in above the value code, I thought that value code was much too low. And this one did have the negative card back. There's a positive and a negative card back. The negative card backs have the all black with white for the figures. But I thought that was a pretty fair price. It wasn't a steal by any means, but it was still a very fair price in the current environment. Here's the one I really wanted. This is the Cloud Car Pilot. The value code on this one was $5,000 to $10,000. And this one sold for $28.55. I remember some loose graded examples of the Lily Letty Cloud Car Pilot going for well over $2,000 just for loose graded. And to get a mint on card, admittedly low grade, but it did have the negative card back. It was an AFA 40 for $28.55. Absolute bargain. Absolute bargain for one of the rarest Lily Lettys out there. That was a really good deal in my mind. Speaking of the Burgundy Cape Bib Fortuna, this one was an AFA 80, and the value code I thought was a little low, to be honest with you. It was $1,000 to $2,000. Typically, a high-grade Bib Fortuna from AFA will set you back $2,500 to $3,000 minimum, usually. But this one came in at $2,206, so another very fair price there. It wasn't a steal by any means, but I think it was a very fair price in the current environment for one of the very desirable variants from the Lily Letty factory. Next up was the French Meccano kind of free figure baggie. I've got one of these for Bouche. This one was a UKG 85%. This one came in well above where I expected it to sell. The value code was $1,000 to $2,000. I thought it might get towards the upper end of that range. This one sold for $51.92. Now, in all fairness, there are fakes floating around that made it through authentication with UKG. I'm not saying that this is one of them, okay? But I do know, I remember reading on Facebook that a number of different fakes have surfaced for this particular baggie. And again, I'm not saying that this is the case with this one, but you just be careful out there if you're buying a Boba Fett French Meccano baggie, because I do know that there are fakes out there. But this UKG 85% sold for $51.92, more than double the high end of the value code, which again, I thought that was too low. I was thinking $2,500, maybe $3,000 for this one. I was thinking kind of the same price as like a Poppy. And this one just shot to the moon. It sold for $51.92. And when that happens, it's usually two whales that are just refuse to get off of the price. They probably have deep pockets. They don't particularly care what they pay for it. And it probably went into extra innings. At the end of the auction time frame, if someone makes a bid during the 20-minute countdown, it resets the clock for another 20-minute countdown. And I didn't follow this one live, but I'm guessing that's what happened. It kind of just kept going on and on until finally somebody caved and they ended up getting it. But $51.92 is well higher than I expected on that one. Here was a proof card, Power of the Force proof card for Luke. Luke Jedi, AFA 75+. So not the highest grade for a proof card, but very rare. Any proof card tends to command big money when it's related to the Power of the Force line. Usually anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000. I thought that this value code was right on the money. It sold for $62.95, so towards the lower end of the range, mainly probably because of the grade. It was only a 75+. Now, if this had been an 85+, or excuse me, an 85 or above, I would think it probably would have hit the $10,000 number easily. We saw a Power of the Force Power Droid proof card that sold on eBay, of all places, that was ungraded, that sold for well over $10,000. So I think for a Luke Jedi Power of the Force proof card, you could have easily gotten $10,000 if this had been in a higher grade. So I thought that was a good price there. Next up is one of the holy grails from the Kenner line. This is the Kenner Canada Yak Face Mint on Card Power of the Force AFA 80. And the value code on it was 10 to 20, which I thought was dead on the money. I was expecting 15,000 on this one. It sold for 11,801, which is well down. That's down significantly from last year. They were averaging, I'd say, minimum $13,000 to $15,000. I think I even saw one sell for $18,000 last year. Now they're selling for 11,800. So a big drop even on these big boy grails like the Kenner Canada Power of the Force Yak Face. Next up was a Glass Sleet South American R2D2 AFA 80+ mint on card. That one sold for $32.45. The value code on that was $5,000 to $10,000. So again, another example of a pretty desirable foreign variant that came in well below the Hakes estimate. We all know about this one. This is the Droids Boba Fett mint on card, and it was an AFA 85. So I remember when it was listed, I was thinking, oh yeah, this is easily going to cross $10,000. Now, they had a value code of 20 to 35, which I thought was way too high. I thought there was no way it would hit that. It came in at 12,980, so pretty close to the $10,000 number that I had in the back of my mind. I thought that 10 might be too low because it's an AFA 85. It's very tough to get that in an AFA. I don't even remember the last time I've ever seen an AFA 85 for this. The last time I vaguely remember one, it was a UKG 85. This is like 5+ years ago. It was maybe even 7 years ago. And it was on Facebook, and the seller wanted $3,300 for it. So that shows you how much it's advanced. Whoever bought that one really got a good deal, because look at what they go for now. This AFA 85 sold for $12,980, which again is down. It's down for what it is, but it's still, I think, a pretty beautiful item and very desirable. I'm going to finish the video with a couple of Power of the Force 2 prototypes from the mid-1990s. And these were ungraded, but they're unpainted first shot prototypes. The first one for the Slave 1. This obviously reuses the mold for the vintage Kenner Slave 1, but this is for the Power of the Force line. The value code on this was $2,000 to $5,000, and it blew past that number. $7,139. $7,139 for a 1990s Power of the Force 2 unpainted prototype vehicle. That's an incredible number. And then likewise, here is Darth Vader's TIE Interceptor or TIE Advanced, and this one also came in towards the upper end of the value code of $2,000 to $5,000. This one sold for $4,720. They both included the CIB, but they were ungraded. But that just shows you that even for the Power of the Force 2 line, when you got these rare prototypes, people are, there's focus collectors out there that only collect Power of the Force 2 prototypes. I know a number of them. and they have some incredible collections. So chances are, leading up to these auctions, they were probably selling a lot of their doubles and triples for a lot of this stuff in order to put together the funds for something like this. But two pretty incredible Power of the Force 2 prototypes sold for big, big money. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this part 2 video. Make sure to go back and watch part 1 if you have not. Thanks again for watching, and I'll be back soon.